So we have some of the most interesting, unique, and amazing meditations, I think, in the world. I mean, we have past life regression meditations, guided hypnosis meditations, Akashic record meditations, as well as healing meditations. Our meditations are pretty cool. And they're not just about stillness of mind and peace and sit there, I mean, we have those too. Don't get me wrong, but these are about meditations that are going to shift and change, and you're going to walk out of there feeling lighter, freer, healed, and even getting guidance and insight. So come down, experience one of our meditations. They're pretty badass. Hi, this is Cristina Dam, and this is Liberate the podcast, where we educate, motivate, inspire, and liberate your consciousness. Hi there, welcome to another episode of Liberate the podcast. Today we have Stephanie Person with us, and she is a health and wellness expert, and we're really going to deep dive into health, lifestyle, well-being, and kind of look at the delusions that people have, what influences people, how people can be healthier from diet, exercise, everything in between. So, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me be here.
Yeah. And you know, so I want people to hear a little bit about you. I mean, I know that, you know, we'll put some links to some of her videos. She does a lot of Facebook Lives and different live streams, YouTube Lives, different things like that. Has a nice, beautiful following for her health and lifestyle, that brand and herself that she does here. But besides that, you've been a pro skater, you're a trainer, also help people with diet, and you inspire people, and you're also one of the kind of founding faces of the keto diet. Mm-hmm. And so, a little bit more about you besides those buzz things that I just said.
Okay. I think I've always been sort of interested in health. Like when I was a kid, I was always obsessed with how people became fat. So with me being active and living I thought at the time, a very healthy lifestyle, I busted my knee as a pro skateboarder. So that's really where it all started, the true initiation to understand the body more.
Okay.
So I used to be a pro skateboarder, and I've had 10 surgeries on my left knee.
Wow.
So I broke everything, like the ACL, the MCL, patella tendon, my 100% of the medial meniscus ripped off the bone. So that's the cushion between, the femur, the femur and the upper thigh, and your fibula and tibia below. So right there in the knee joint, it just ripped off. So you have two of them, one's gone.
And was this in a skateboarding accident, or was this something completely different?
It was a skateboarding accident. So I used to skate on big vert ramps, and my leg got caught up. So it's higher than the ceiling. I was up in the air, and my leg got stuck up there, but my upper body kept rotating down. So leg stuck, body rotated, and the body snapped at the knee.
So like a muscle snap or muscle that got it caught, or got caught on something?
Well, I was on a board, so on the ramp you have coping, they have metal piping, and I was going across really, really fast. And up here, the piping that they had, they didn't weld it together, so there was like an inch gap. And you always had to watch out for it, and I forgot that it was there. And you have these metal axles or trucks on the bottom of your skateboard.
Yeah.
And I went across and it stuck. So when the board stuck, my leg stuck there. And so then I kept rotating down, and then everything just snapped at the knee.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah,
this
is actually the knee.
Wow. Yeah, look at all those scar marks.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's when I really started getting into health. If I had a curiosity as a kid, then that's when it was really trying to figure it out. And
now, if we backtrack a minute, because I want to hear about what happened as a result after skating and having the skating accident. But you said that you had a fascination with what made people healthier, what made people have weight on them, or different things like that. Was that something where did you grow up in a household where you had siblings or parents or anything that were overweight, or were you overweight as a kid, or was it just like you observed and you were just curious about it?
I was a big observer as a kid about everything, like, you know, people's intentions and people's personalities and people's actions. It doesn't matter what it is, you know. Being a person of color, trying to understand racism, it just, like, I had a big curiosity about anything that was very obvious. So people who were overweight or people who were struggling or whatever it was, had a big curiosity to all of that. And so when I hurt my knee, there's a lot of emotions and fears and psychology that goes behind, well, what do I do now?
Yeah, well, especially you were a pro skater. That's how you made your money. That was your life. And now you're like, okay, I have to be in recovery for God knows how long, and who knows if I'll even be able to skate again, right?
Yeah, yes. So I was on crutches for 4 years.
4 years?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's not like... That's like, I think, the longest to hear somebody on crutches. 4 years.
Yes, and people started making, I used to live in Sweden, so I used to be a pro skater that would tour in Europe. So I ended up living in Europe altogether 16 years and 11 years in Sweden. So I had all my surgeries there in Sweden. And so all my friends there were like, you know, they just started making fun of me, started calling me gimp and all this kind of stuff. But I was in such denial, I would always say that when I get back on my feet, I'm going to be like a bullet out of a gun. Like, I'm going to be on it. Now I can't run, jump, lunge, squat, or run out of a burning building today. It's like destroyed, the knee. But I definitely am like a bullet out of a gun.
Well, now what went on? I'm always fascinated with people's mindset, right? You know, like why some people can have the tenacity and drive to overcome certain things, and why sometimes people can have a situation shadow them so much that they can't move forward, right?
Yeah.
And so to me, I'm just hearing this, and your life and your identity wrapped up in your lifestyle, even where you're living, and all of this, to, like, you know, suddenly get knocked down. I mean, what was your mental state like over those 4 years that you were in crutches?
In denial. Denial is not just a river in Egypt. Okay.
Okay. So that kind of maybe helped you keep on pushing through, though.
Oh,
So the denial was actually a beautiful coping mechanism that says, I'm going to get better, and I'm going to be the shooting bullet out of a gun.
Yeah, of course.
And okay. And so how did you cope with not being as active during that time?
Oh, I remember my first surgery, I had so much pain in my leg that when I would stand up, anyone who's had surgery in their lower extremities knows it's very painful because the blood rushes down to that one point where they cut deep into the knee. And so it just like pound. And so I was...
like a pulsating feeling?
Just like you want to pass out and like throw up. But I would get on my skateboard, had a hardwood floor, and I would just roll on, like I would just push myself on the skateboard. So there is no sitting down doing nothing. And I developed a deep infection in my leg, which fused the bones together, which is why I had 10 surgeries. Yeah, so my leg was fused together straight. So I still can't bend it more than this. So because that's as far as that, I just, like, after the 10th surgery, I was like, okay, I'm good. I'm out. Thank you, Sweden, but deuces, you ruined my leg. I'm out of here. But
wow.
the psychology, I think, is a good, interesting way, concept, right? Something that's not a non-traditional question on health. I think it's because my mom is so strong. She has a very, very, very strong personality. And people who are Black kind of make jokes within each other, like the culture, like especially my age group, because I'm 52, that, you know,
look good.
Thank you, honey. Okay.
I would have never guessed, seriously.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a 67 baby, yes.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But she was very, very, very strong, right? So she's from a family of 10. Her mother beat the crap out of these 10 kids. And they ran a farm. It was the full on, what is it, 40 acres and a mule, like indentured slavery. Like they couldn't pay off the debt, so my grandmother kept plopping out kids to try to keep up the debt and all this kind of stuff.
Wow.
So she came up in a very strong environment, and she's from Tennessee, and then we moved here to LA. So I was born here in LA, but she would take her values of growing up and install them here in a different climate. So while all my friends, especially all my white friends, were like saying to their mother to F off and like shut up, my mother would be like, she would just give me the death look of, you know, like, yeah, you try to do that, okay? Yeah, like my mother was really, really, really tough, times a million. And I think that translated into, plus my mom came from so much adversity. I never saw her give in or freak out over anything. So that's all you know is somebody not handling things. And
you had a great role model to say, like, no, you move through things and you keep on going. And
well, she wouldn't actually say it in that context. She didn't know how to communicate it out. I would just copy her movements.
Yeah, but I mean, observing.
Yes.
Like, the role model aspect of it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But I think today, when I look at the climate of society, being 52 and seeing how things are today, people are very, and I lived in Europe for 16 years of my life and have traveled around the world like a million times, most of it by myself. I start to see culturally and the way that we exist in this country, we're very pacified. So people have a difficulty to deal with stress. We don't have traditions and values to help us to evolve with things that are stressful. Let's say death in another country. They'll have like traditions to move around death. Like I was in Africa one year and this girl died and I was staying with her and her mom died. And then she was like screaming and crying. And I was freaking out. She was screaming and crying. And then the friend was like, no, she's purging out her pain. So they had like 5 days of pain. And then on the 6th day, you start to celebrate that person's life. And you no longer scream or holler or cry. And then I came to the realization that they're used to death so much that they created tradition around that so they can move on. So we don't have that in this culture. So when people become overweight, they're like eating their emotions away, and then also it starts to affect their physiology, and then they're intertwined. So a lot of like poor impulse control, people who are delusional or having any type of bipolar, any type of psychosomatic issues, people who are going through depression, they don't understand the big link between their physiology, their environment, the toxins, the food, their lack of exercise. Like everything matters.
Yeah, I mean everything plays a part, and nowadays, like I mean, I was seeing like I was watching a TED Talk the other day, and they were looking at nutrition, and they were analyzing like the average American diet and how almost 80% of it was processed food. And like I look at like processed food as being so toxic, right? I mean, what is it? It's made in a lab, like that can't be good for you, right? And then we have a more and more polluted society, but people often don't look at these pollutions that they're digesting, and even the pesticides and herbicides and things like that are sprayed on things, right? Like, I mean, Roundup has arsenic in it. Arsenic in Roundup, like, so, I mean, that's like in every little like movie about how the wife kills the husband or the husband kills the wife is like poison with arsenic, right? But yet we're digesting this and consuming this, even if it's in small quantities, it's how many people are eating this all the time. And they're not understanding that they're having this, they can either be developing psychosis, depression, all this other stuff, but their body's not operating right. They're not operating right,
Yeah, so Roundup has a chemical called glyphosate on it.
Yeah.
Glyphosate destroys the gut wall, so that's the small intestine. And you have a nerve that goes from the brain, it's the vagus nerve, it goes all the way down to your small intestine. And that also connects to the hypothalamus, pituitary, and adrenal axis in the middle of the brain that controls the master control of a lot of hormones that affect your mood and your gut. And so this whole journey into health for me, like we would have to do like 20 of these to get through all the stuff that I've learned, which is not going to happen, obviously. But there's so much that I know that the average person doesn't think about. So they think, okay, if I stay away from the standard American diet of processed food, then I'll be healthy. You'll be healthier. But then we have to
because then they're not thinking about like, is Roundup or other, because now, even if Roundup's starting to become illegal to use, there's all of these synthetic versions or alternative that are still using the same
glyphosate.
And so it's like, just because it's not Roundup per se sprayed on, it doesn't mean that it's not something just as similar that has is just as harmful. So it's like, okay, they're going and they're grabbing, I don't know, this lettuce at the store, and they think, oh, I'm being healthy because I'm having a salad, but really
or organic.
But they're poisoning themselves, they're not intentionally because they are, thinking this, but it's because what's sprayed on there, right? That they're not even aware of.
So there's organic and non-organic foods. So people understand, like I try to explain a lot of things to people. People are confused on what's organic, what's not organic, what's genetically modified, what's selectively bred. All of those things do also matter with your health.
Yeah.
So you could go and get a salad and it can have glyphosate on it, and if it's not organic, certified organic. So that's also something really important. You could be eating a healthy salad, and I use quotations because salads aren't always healthy, and I'll go into that.
Yeah. All the different oils and different things that people put on them, or
No, actually the plants themselves.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know anything about the internal pesticides of plants, and why foods are like, what should we be eating, and like to our DNA, and like what parts of the
Well, I know like a lot of, like I've studied some of the Dr. Sebi's diet and the different, genetically modified plants like broccoli, carrots, those kind of things that aren't natural, and different things along those lines, which are interesting. This some of my favorites: broccoli, cauliflower, carrots. I know it's like saddening when you find out that they don't really grow naturally, except for purple carrots that were once made or grown in Egypt. But other than that, you don't really have the orange carrots and the different things like that. They're not, And then sometimes, I get all my food from the farmer's market, but sometimes my roommate, he'll buy like carrots in a bag, like orange carrots, and it'll be like, they'll be in the fridge for like 2 months, and they've never wilted, they've never done anything, and you're like, it can't be good for you to consume, no matter what. Like, why is it still crunchy? My farmer market's carrots are like wilted within 2 days, and like, starting to like mold if I don't eat them in a week, and his carrots are in there for 2 months.
Yeah, it's scary that you can go and breed these selectively and hybridize and genetically modify these structures to frickin' not wilt and die off and all of this for so long. It's really scary, because what is that doing to our DNA?
Yeah, and I mean, like, and I've heard that some manufacturers of some carrots even put formaldehyde in it. Okay, so educate us a little bit on this little internal structure of some of the vegetables and things like that, because I'm sure that while you're saying it, people are curious on some aspects.
Yes. Okay. So this aligns with what I do right now, because I do keto, which is supposed to mimic an ancestral diet. Okay. And you have to think about what would we be eating in nature. So if I were to ask you, if you lived outside with no technology, what would you be eating? Where's your family from? Wisconsin. I mean, genetically.
Native American. So in the U.S. and then Germany.
Okay.
And then Italy a little bit too.
Okay. So you would say that most of your DNA is coming towards more of a Eurocentric.
Yes.
Okay. So what would you be eating right now in Germany if there was no technology?
I feel like, I'm saying a whole bunch of potatoes, but the potatoes would not necessarily. But
they're from South America.
Yeah,
so, yeah.
So, but I mean, when you think about it, when you think about a German diet, you think about sauerkraut, you think about potatoes, you think about Wiener Schnitzels, you think about those kind of things. That's like the, even like potato pancakes. Those are like a German like food, right? So. Yeah, a lot more of that type of, those are the food cuisines that are like...
Think about if you lived outside, right? Your DNA, not, agriculturalized foods, not farm foods, just what would you live off of the land?
Not agriculture or farm foods?
Yeah, because our DNA, our bodies are primal.
Well... Yes and no. I believe that we're genetically hybrided from Anunnaki, but
no. I meant I'm saying like from more recent times.
Yeah.
So if you take us as our hunter gatherers, that makes it more specific.
Yeah. So I mean, it depends on what part from Germany, right, and where the area is. But you would be maybe cultivating some berries and some different things like that in the summer and the fall time. You would be looking at maybe some other wild grains or stuff like that, and you'd be eating,
You wouldn't be eating grains if it's not agriculturalized. You wouldn't be eating any grains.
You wouldn't be eating, but grains were back in like grains have been in our diet since, even in the book of Genesis, so like we go back on grains since our
We've
evolution.
been going from 10,000 years, that's it.
I have a little slightly different. Like, so if grains were given, if you look back into like right after the Noah's Ark flood, they said that the gods gave grains, and they gave 3 different types of grains. But
Well, let's just take what grows in Germany.
okay, so what grows in
At
Germany?
that time, because there's not a lot of grains. That's going to come from the Middle East.
Yeah. So I mean, I've only been to Germany once. So if you fill me in on on the landscape there a little bit, I've only been and visited once. So
Right. Yeah. There's going to be no grains. So they're going to be doing fishing. They're going to have some berries. They're going to be eating some roots, some rooted vegetables, and hunt. And that's it.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah,
So you have to think culturally, ancestrally, where we come from. So people who are more equatorian, lower, they're going to be exposed to more fruits, more of a variety of fruits. And so you can really see how people's DNA is catered towards, lighter skin is through the loss of melanin from the melanocytes, so you can get more sun, get more vitamin D.
Yeah.
So our bodies are affected by the climate.
Yeah, of course.
Very much so. Our gut health, the way our bodies can break down foods and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Or deal with fructose or any types of any type of plant from different regions. So the reason why I say this is because I want people to get a visualization outside of
I like it.
anything that's agriculture, right? We were once eating wild food. That would
Yeah,
be,
no. I hear you. I hear you.
Right? So besides any other ancient civilized, I'm not talking about civilization.
Okay.
I'm talking about
Pre-civilization, primal, like, where were we? Okay.
Yeah. So that's my area of fascination.
Okay.
Because our bodies really do respond to, let's say, my physicality, right? So
Okay.
I'm mixed with a lot of things, but there's a lot of Afrocentricity in me. So you can
Okay.
take like bone density, the shape of the muscles. This is not coming from Northern European.
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? So I gotta go like, well, what would I be eating if I lived in that region, or what the East Africa or West Africa? What would I be eating?
Okay.
Because a larger part of my DNA is going to come from that part of the world.
Okay.
So this is the kind of stuff that I'm very fascinated by, like super fascinated, because you can see, and I've done so much traveling, I see what people who are like closer to, in different cultures, what they eat, and culturally how they prepare and how food's involved and how their health is.
Now, where does this come into play? Because, okay, so I hear you on this, but there is also a large body of knowledge that depending on what the mother eats during the time of being pregnant, creates the gut flora for the fetus. And then also, well, if they're breastfeeding, the different bacteria and the different cultures that are within the system, because we can have, so many wide variety of gut flora, and so where does it come in? So I hear the longer kind of more primitive aspect, but where does it come in what the mother was kind of conditioned or passed on, because let's say somebody Europe, okay, and the thing of roots and berries and maybe some fish and hunting, and then let's say that the mother though was ate a lot of fruits and tropicals and different things like that, and so the babies or the person are they going to be better conditioned to eat the longer DNA type of primitive stuff, or the things that their gut flora was balanced on?
I'm not really sure if that's a clear question in my mind. I can say this,
Okay.
that plants grow in season, so you have about 10 weeks.
Okay.
So you're not going to get a lot of plant source. Most cultures ate more of a, mainly more of an animal diet, and if they were doing any type of culturalizing of the food, they would prep it. So soak it and ferment it and do all these wonderful things that a lot of people don't do today.
Yeah. So many people don't have fermented vegetables and things like that, and all the cultures that those bring.
Right. And there's some drawbacks to that, because if your gut flora is completely at an imbalance, adding all of these different cultures like Akkermansia and Bifido longum, they can make your gut explode. Like, you'll have to go to the hospital eating like a bowl of sauerkraut. So if you have small intestinal bacterial overgrowth because you have big holes in the gut wall and you take in all that bacteria, and there's too much of it, too much of this, and you might have too much of like lactobacillus or something you're adding more in, it'll instantly create a more of an imbalance. Your gut can't heal with it. So you have to strengthen that gut wall, then add in those fermented foods.
What causes those holes in those gut walls?
Wheat, beans, soy, quinoa, anything that's a baby plant. So baby plants, nuts, all the things that people think that are healthy, because the baby plant is the worst. Because they're the species, because plants have been around a lot longer than us, and they want to survive.
So what do you mean by baby plant? Do you mean like youngly harvest, like sprouts, or do you mean like, what's the definition of a baby plant?
Anything that starts the growth stage of a plant.
Okay, so like a sprout, like an early stage of so a baby plant, legitimately, not like a, okay.
I know, not like a, and there's like
no, because you said like nuts and stuff like that. I was like, okay, well, is it like newer plants that are like now in like a baby plant, like a new age plant, like something brand new, or like a baby?
Yeah, like a nut, a seed, a grain.
Okay.
Any of these things that land on the soil and that begin to sprout.
Gotcha.
And what they essentially are designed, I mean, nuts have shells for a reason. They don't want to be eaten. And we eat them like a bunch of idiots without preparing them like our ancestors did. So nuts have a thing called phytic acid in them. And this is like Mother Nature's by design perfection. What they do is they're not digestible. So you don't really digest the nutrients from nuts. You can digest the oils, but you don't digest most. Most of it comes out your butt. Mm-hmm. So you take a nut, you take an almond, which are very poisonous, by the way. That's a very hybridized plant, or nut. You take a nut, you chew it, it ends up in your small intestine, and that's where that's where we absorb all our minerals. And just like the soil, it's going to soak up all of the minerals out of the soil so it can grow. And it does that in your gut, in your small intestine, and you go over there and poop, and so that plant will grow. And you demineralize your body.
So it's literally sucking some of the minerals out of your body.
Oh, yeah, it's absorbing it. And you're
so not only does it take gallons and gallons to produce one little nut, it's of water in our little drought, especially in California. It's pulling and sucking all the nutrients out of the system. That's interesting.
Host. Yeah, it's a very smart design to do now. Mother Nature didn't factor toilets and stuff like that, where it just go down and do somewhere else. But if you were to land on the ground, it'd be a great way to germinate and pollinate.
Yeah.
So we eat these things without prepping them in a smart way, like soaking them for 3 days and drying them out, then eating them and getting rid of a lot of the phytic acid. Mm-hmm. So all plants are poisonous. It's just the way it is. They have to have an internal pesticide, or otherwise insects will obliterate it. People need to think. So the way that we prepared food before, we're not doing that. And that's what's really scary, watching people be deficient in everything.
Yeah.
They have a weak gut wall. Now, people are weak gluten because gluten is another baby plant. You take the grain, and gluten is a protein that damages the lining of your small intestine. It pokes holes in it. That's leaky gut. That's celiac disorder. Mm-hmm. And it's even worse because we genetically modify that grain so much to where the chromosome chains of gluten are so long. There's so much more gluten now in bread than it used to be. Now bread,
like if I get like wheat from Italy, like pastas from Italy, it doesn't affect me. Pastas that are like American, I have to always get imports. Otherwise, I feel it.
Feel well, exactly. Now, even if you import those grains that aren't as like genetically altered, you're still damaging the gut wall. It's just not so invasive. And so when you eat these foods, the timing of the food, seasonal eating is so important. Going and just buying everything because we can get it from South America in our winter months is not the smartest. For example, spinach, great source of potassium, but it's got a high level of oxalates in it. And oxalates look like, under a microscope, very scary. They look like shards of glass, needles, and knives.
So then what do they do to our system?
They destroy it. So they create liver lesions, kidney stones. Kidney stones are 100% off of oxalates from plants.
So they go in and there's little like glass-like shards that like compound together. Love to see.
Yeah. I'll do this real quick. They get into your urethra. A lot of women think that they have urinary tract infections, but they don't. They have oxalates in the urethra, and it's burning. Images of oxalate crystals.
Check out these pictures.
I know, it's coming through my earphones. Let's see here. So this is an oxalate.
All right, let's see.
Under a microscope. It's going to be too blurry, but...
I don't think so. Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, that's no joke. So I even started getting kidney crystals from the precursors to stones because I was eating so much spinach.
Wow, look at that guy.
Yeah, and that's what oxalate does. So that's when people have poor kidney function, people have got gout, where they can't deal with the overload of uric acid and purines from red meats into the kidneys. It's because of the oxalates from spinach and dark chocolate and potatoes and a lot of foods that you didn't that we overconsume out of season all the time because we can go to the supermarket and they're not prepped. So if you take spinach and you boil it and you strain out the water, you're pulling out a lot of those oxalate crystals, and then you can prepare it that way. That's going to be a lot safer. So not only, the plants give you some great things, and then they can give you some that will kick your butt. You know?
So what about people that do like a 100% raw diet?
Oh, they're going to die. Or a bad, struggling death.
Really? What about all the people that really live by it, write all these health books and different things on it? I mean, I'm not a raw foodist or anything like that. I was just saying,
I mean, it's just coming around now that people are understanding, because doctors don't learn a lot about nutrition.
I know, a 6-hour class, that's all I take.
6-hour class, and they don't learn a lot about the species of plants, the different around the world, how to prepare them, how our ancestors prepared these foods. And so, it seems like a great idea to go. And here's the thing, I mean, we're not, people who are raw foodists or vegans, they're not eating things in season. So right there, they're already going against nature. So you have to look at, it's now more new information about people trying to understand what an oxalate looks like under a microscope. And 100% I developed kidney crystals from eating so much spinach, which I thought was one of the healthiest foods ever because it's so high in potassium. Yeah. And I didn't know that it was creating crystals in my kidneys. Same thing with kale. Kale blocks iodine from getting into the thyroid, so people start developing goiters or, low thyroid T3 hormone because of having too much kale, because they think that kale is so healthy, but it's not.
Are different forms of kale more healthy than others?
No.
Because you got the dino kale, the bushy kale, the different things like that.
It's goitrogenic, and it will block iodine from the thyroid, just the way it is, over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what are the vegetables that are good for you?
Things with low oxalates in them, like a sweet potato is better than a white potato. Cabbage is really good. Cabbage is good. Broccoli's on the fence. Brussels sprouts. Cauliflower is really, really good.
Really?
Yeah, these are lower in plant anti-nutrients.
Even though cauliflower is a hybrid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's anti-nutrients called salicylates, oxalates, goitrogens, nightshades, lectins, saponins, tannins, gluten. They mess you up.
Okay.
There's a lot of tannins in green tea and in teas, and we just sit there and suck down green tea all day long.
And what about
then tannins take away iron? So if you're a menstruating woman who's got low hemoglobin levels, it's not good to drink tea all day long.
Okay, and so what about are you familiar with the China study?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
They did studies on rats. And no, I'm sorry, rabbits.
No, the China study was...
they did, though. They did.
No, but the China study, it was when the ruler of China ended up with... he ended up with liver cancer and or some form of cancer, I forget what it was, and he opened up research to the whole country of China. And it was the first time that a nationwide research study was done on cancer, and he didn't see the results of it because he died in the process of it happening. But what they did was the first ever standardized, cross the whole country to all the different territories of study on cancer. And they found that, and then they took that a little bit further, and then some more further researchers continued to do it, and then a book came out called The China Study, and it was based on all of this research, and they were able to pinpoint the direct correlation to animal products forming different forms of cancer within different regions within China. And for so long in China, they, at different territories that still didn't eat a lot of meat, had
the Okinawans?
they had the lowest rates of cancer. And so, I mean, I would have to pull all the study or whatever and stuff, but they actually found like if they ate this type of meat, if they ate pork versus if they ate this, if they ate chicken versus if they ate that, and they could actually pinpoint the different cancer. And so how do we look at that? Because I'm kind of a person that I'm like against animal products. Like I don't like to eat them. I don't support it. Like I'll maybe eat a little bit of fish here or there, but I follow more like the medical medium protocols. And I've healed myself from autoimmune diseases. I'm extremely healthy now. I used to be on like 22 pills a day. So I've eradicated an autoimmune disease. I've eradicated different types of problems within my system. I also had Crohn's disease, but I had an autoimmune disease that was opposite of AIDS, where I produced way too many white blood cells. I was super sick as a kid. And I healed myself by taking out animal products out of my diet, and I became healthy as a result of that. So it's just interesting. I mean, and everything works for different people at different times, but it's just I'm listening, and I have a different belief system, but it doesn't mean that mine's right or yours is right or mine's wrong and yours is wrong. I'm just wondering how you go about that type of mindset.
Okay, so granted, one of the things I said, everything's contextual.
Yeah.
Right? So there are people that eat one meal a day and say they do great.
Well, yeah, no, and that's where I think that there's different diets for different people too, based on so many of their different, what works for them, their lifestyle, where they are, their DNA, their genetics.
Yes.
You know, like their gut bacteria, the
Yes.
different things that are going on. And so when I'm hearing this, I mean, it's fascinating. It's a different theory of one that I haven't ever put myself into that.
Actually,
I
haven't come together with a theory.
Oh, no, not a theory, but a different.
It's facts that plants have plant anti-nutrients, and if we're eating things out of season, so that's a fact. We've genetically modified carrots and broccoli, which was the cabbage. These are facts. So there's no theory yet.
Well, yes, and then there's also been facts that have shown scientific research that has linked red meat and different types of meats to different forms of cancer and illness and high cholesterol and things like that.
Absolutely not. You actually have to understand, because we're going
No,
off.
I mean, these are facts. These are scientific studies that I've actually looked at.
There's no a double-blind med study that proves that there's any cancerous link to red meat, period. Yeah. You can go look at it. You can go to PubMed and you can find zero link. So you have to be careful with the medical community. You can go to a doctor tomorrow and they'll go, you have these symptoms and we'll put you on an SSRI, which is serotonin reuptake inhibitor, which means you're depressed, where you might have something going on with like your gut, or you might have something going on with your estrogen dominance, and this is affecting the neurochemistry. So we have to take science with a grain of salt. There's a lot of, let's say the China study, they did do studies on rabbits that said they cannot tolerate that meat is unhealthy. These rabbits died from eating red meat. Well, they're herbivores, so they can't eat red meat. They used rabbits mainly as their main subjects. If you take people who are centurions, they come from Okinawa, they eat pork, and a lot of it. A lot of pork. So we have to be careful with studies, who they're funded by. You know, let's take the keto diet, right? Mm-hmm. This is a great example. So when I first started doing keto, people didn't know what it was. Then everyone's like, oh my God, it's the best thing ever. And then they're like, oh my God, this thing's unhealthy. What are we basing all this information on, right?
Yeah.
So, keto's not good for women. Nothing's contextualized. What kind of meat were people? When people do surveys, people don't remember what they ate 3 days ago. Mm-hmm. You have to do long-term studies with people, and they have to be and this is what the medical community doesn't do. They don't do human trials, right? So a lot of this stuff on meats is animal trials.
Well, the China study in China was done off all people it was a people study on cancer. Like that one was.
Right, but they also use rabbits as their main, you can go and look at, they use rabbits as the link to cancer when it came to eating red meat. They use rabbits.
For the specific China study, it was people, and they went through they looked at their mortality rate, they looked at when they got diagnosed with cancer and everything. It was a people study, that specific one. Now there could have been other ones, and maybe when that book came out for some of the things, but the actual like governmental study was done on humans.
Okay, so you got to realize how corrupt China is today with WeChat. They control everything. You know how Russia was with Chernobyl? How they didn't tell anybody that was going on? We have to really be careful with government studies. So sometimes when people ask me with like what I do, well, you know, where do you get your data from? Like, what education do you have? And I'm like, the people I work with, because it's 3,000 people deep now. So I've come together with a lot of my understandings of things. So in the beginning, people are like, oh, okay, whatever. They were indifferent because they like it was new. Then it was like, oh, you're crazy, because I would tell people to stop eating specific foods: cheese, nuts, and coffee. Those were the 3 things, because people would have all of these like hypoglycemic reactions. Their hair would fall out when they would eat these foods, but I didn't understand why at the time.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, caffeine also makes your pH go, you know, and so like
It does a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I know. So I mean, I can
yeah. It's really coffee is really
and
really,
they've
bad for you.
and they linked dairy too in the same study. They linked dairy.
Yeah, but that's
makes
all a bunch of crap, because with it matters the type of food that you're eating, right? I've been to China. You don't get like high quality grass fed, you know, raw milk. You're not getting that. You're getting the worst quality of food. Absolutely, 100%. Us living here, like, we can go to Air One and get raw kefir, which is so good for the gut flora. This idea of dairy damaging and messing with your insulin receptor sites, and the IGF-1 is a bunch of bullshit. Sorry. And there's nothing, it's just unfortunate. Look, when it comes to sentient beings and the industrialization of animals, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
But if you're talking about what our DNA can survive off of, it's, if you're in Germany, you're not going to be eating a lot of berries to survive. You're going to have to hunt. And so there have been no vegan societies that have been, you know, that we can see and find. People lived off of what they could. And when we were hunter-gatherers and we were migrating around, you have to follow where the season of foods that are growing. You have to, because here's this thing that's very, very interesting. I watched this cheesy show years ago called Naked and Afraid.
Okay.
And then I it's like a reality show where you take these adventures and you throw them out in really remote places out of the world for, like, normally it's 21 days with no clothing on. And you can bring one thing. So it can be like a flint rock, or it can be like, bring like
so it's like a
fly
Survivor
net.
show, but it's like a better version. They just throw them out.
They literally throw them out, and like with Survivor, they're like right there. But on this show, they actually have to put the camp, like the people who are the medics and stuff, somewhere else. And so you see people getting like really sick, like dengue fever, and they get like spider bites, and they have to be rushed off to the hospital. People get like almost die on this show. It's like really crazy. So they took, I think it was like 12 people, and they put them in Africa, East Africa, which I've been to. And I lived in an African village for 2 months. So I'm like super fascinated by this.
Okay.
East Africa for 2 months, for 40 days, or like a month and a half, and put them outside. And I was like, okay, let's see what they're going to eat. Can you imagine what they ate?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure exactly what all of like the natural vegetation is, but I'm guessing that they would have to eat some meats and small rodents and animals, and if they bordered the sea, then I'm guessing that they would do some fishing and stuff too.
Yes. So they ate wild spinach, right? They boiled wild spinach, and they had some catfish with that, and they tried to eat figs and almost had to go to the hospital because these are wild. So a plant is most safe right when it's about to die, because it's not going to survive. So all those anti-nutrients are a lot lower.
Gotcha.
The poisons in the plant are a lot lower. So they ate it too prematurely, and a couple of them had to go to the hospital because they didn't know any better. These are wild species, right? These have not been hybridized, so they become edible. And then the rest they hunted. They ate boar, and then they ate fish, and like they ate one type of caribou thing, and then like some ants and snakes, and like that's what they ate. So when you're like, oh, the China study and the government, China's so corrupt and all this kind of stuff, we have to think, what would it be if we were to live outside and sort of allow nature to dictate what would it be? Of course, we're going to eat plants and fruits and berries and roots. And if we ate nuts, we prepare them because we're not having children, because we're being demineralized. And then we would eat animals. So when you're like, oh,
but we would eat wild animals, and so
right.
there's a lot of like, you know, the way of factory farming is, and some of these animals, they're genetically altered, they're stuffed with antibiotics,
Yeah.
they're, you know, chickens grow like twice as big, twice
Can't
as
walk.
fast, can't walk, they're mowing in their own feces, you know, or like the cows, you know, never even see daylight, you know, and it's like that energy, and you know, I'm all about energy.
They're actually, cows are grass fed first. I'm totally against factory farming, but they're not. They don't grow up in like they have to be certified and they have to eat the grass first. Then they go to the feedlots for 15 months. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I mean, but still, like that trauma that they go through in the 15 months is, you know, I mean, these are animals that have, you know, souls too, and they have impact, they have intelligence, and you know, you're traumatizing these animals, and then you're loading them through of chemicals and hormones and all of this stuff, and what is available to the average consumer is, you know, not really good quality stuff.
Horrible.
You know, and so if people are eating that,
they are,
you know,
most people.
You know, I mean, I'd take spinach over that any day, you know?
Well, problem is that there's more animals killed in farming than there is in, because people don't factor in mice, fox, birds, anything that's in that population, insects. So we lose no matter what. We destroy the soil. We demineralize the soil. We keep throwing like chemicals on it so we can keep growing like our soy and our corn and our
Yeah,
wheat.
well, no, I'm totally against that too. They regrow the same crop over and over again. You're not getting any mineral density. So even if you think, you know, that you're getting nutrients, they say like spinach nowadays is like, I don't know if it's like 1,000 times less nutritious than it was 20 years ago or something like
Would
that.
have more minerals in it, magnesium, potassium.
Yeah, it's because it's all depleted because they use the same area to continue to grow it.
Exactly. The thing is about the factory farming, I don't even think it's a subject because I'm 100% agreement to that. So all the meat I eat is not, it's like grass-fed and free range and all this kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm against all of that factory farming, but I'm also against all of the crops that come up and just destroy the topsoil.
Well, you know, I'm against because you're not getting any of the true nutrient density, and you know, like we need, you know, if we're looking at that holistic type of thing, it's how do we get the nutrients that we need or the right components that we need in this lifestyle that is completely different landscape than how we would have lived, you know, 20,000 years ago, right? You know, and so it's all the way around, from the vegetables to the meats to even the fish, right? You know, and because most of the time it's like these fish farms, right? Most of what people are buying at the store are farm-raised fish that are filled with all of these little parasites and all this other stuff, and so it's like
fed corn.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the fish are being fed corn, or you know, like they're being fed chicken. Like they found that one of these like fish farms in like Northern California or whatever, they were feeding the fish chicken. What? Like,
I just feel like so many things that we do on so many different levels is so horrifying.
But this is why, like I think what you're saying is know what you eat. You know, it's like even if we disagree maybe on some of the diet choices, like I think that that core essence of purity and knowing what you eat and trying to find the truth and the most nutrient dense available absorption, you know, like that we can have, right? You know,
yeah, I don't actually think we disagree. I think that just knowledge gives you better choices. So, you know, I eat plants, so we don't disagree on that. And as far as like what our cultures ate, there's no disagreement. The centurions. So I don't think we're actually disagreeing. I just think that that we differ on what we choose to eat, but we're not like in an argument.
No. There's not an argument. I'm just saying that I support more of a more just plant-based diet, and you support more of a meat-based diet. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with people eating meat. I have a problem with the factory farming, and I don't think that the choices of what people are getting when they go to an average restaurant or a place is something of value, you know, like.
So what do you think this, because like, you know, basically on both sides, it sucks. Everything destroys the planet.
Well, yeah.
So what I try to do, like at the end of the day, because I'm 100% agreeing with you, the factory farming is so disgusting. And it's like, what?
In factory farming, even if it's not factory farming for just animals, factory farming for massive producing of even agriculture, like the mass quantities that are being produced that are lacking nutrients or over inundating it with hormones or pesticides or herbicides or whatever the case may be. It's like our food system is creating this illness that, people are struggling with. How you started out saying, all of the different correlations from the vagus nerve and having this ability that goes to your pituitary gland, that goes to all of your, most of the time when people actually. Oh, you're laughing at me?
No, not at you. No, I'm stuck on the conversation.
Oh, no. I thought maybe I said something that I was like, did I mess up on something? But no.
I'm having an intelligent conversation.
Like that. A lot of the times when people are having these depression or low moods or lack of energy or feeling non-fulfilled in life, it's literally what they eat. Right?
Well, it's a couple things.
Well, it's
a couple things. So there's like a triad of things. So it starts with the diet. So if certain foods can break down the body, then your timing of foods. A lot of people have like adrenal fatigue, or they have chronic fatigue, or they'll have thyroid issues, and so food timing. People eat on the go. They're like skipping meals. So the body is like a car. You're putting gasoline in it. You drive a car. People are going and driving 100 miles an hour, and there's no gasoline in the tank. Mm-hmm. If you're not putting fuel in the body has to rob from itself. That breaks down your immune system.
Yeah.
So there's all these little nuances that people don't consider. If you're not sleeping well, and there's 5 levels of sleep, right? It's like you're diving down into a swimming pool.
Yeah.
And the deeper you go, when you get to the REM cycle, that's when you've passed deep sleep, and now you can start to repair the body. And people aren't hitting that because, let's say, these lights right now at this time of day are telling our brain that it's 2 o'clock, the pituitary, that it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So cortisol that would be on its way down is now on its way up. Yeah. So if you ate poorly but you did everything else correctly, that would preserve your DNA a little bit more, which is called epigenetics. Your genetics would be able to withstand the amount of just catabolizing, attack on it. So sleep is probably a big one. The diet is probably a big one. And then
lifestyle, like you just said,
the exercise.
Lights, different things, exercise, all of it.
Yeah.
So we're constantly being inundated. So, pretty much if we gave somebody a takeaway, it's about being aware of what you do, how you live, and how to take care of yourself, right? Because it's really a table, right?
Yeah.
It's more than just 3 factors, maybe 4 or 5 or 6, that are all coming in. And even if you took like a 4-legged table, you can cut one leg off and it still stands,
Exactly right.
until the pressure hits it in the wrong angle, and then it's going to tumble over.
Yeah.
But from the surface, everything might look all right. But the moment that a little bit more pressure gets added on, and it's going to tumble over. And I think that that's what happens. Like, people can last 5 years, 10 years going,
a lifestyle, a lifetime.
And then they have one little thing that cracks, right? Something happens. They go through a brutal divorce. Something else happens. It was something in their life. And suddenly that little bit of pressure, and they realize that they didn't have a strong foundation, that there was a collapse, right? Mm-hmm. And then you're seeing all these massive people with health ramifications and toxic. I mean, it's just...
And depression is out of control. So there's so many things, like us being connected to the nature. So a part of me getting a horse it was a conscious decision. I'm going to have to be forced to be outside all day to connect to a circadian rhythm. I will be exposed to natural light all day. This is going to affect my DNA.
Yeah.
And these things people don't consider. They go from their house to their car to the blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, how can you most natureify your life as much as you can within a very progressively, nano-driven technology society, autonomous society, in the direction that we're going? How can you be your most natural self? I feel that a lot of people don't understand that depression doesn't just start in the mind. It has a lot to do with what's going on in your gut.
Yeah.
So that
mostly
vagus
like
nerve,
you were talking about. Like I fully believe that, And
Yes.
that throws off everything, and it's all connected, right? Just like you said. And then if you're not getting proper sleep, and then you're not, sleep is not only about recharging your body, it's also about coping with your stress, and it's about releasing, like having your body be able to be in alignment with the current reality, right? Because there's three aspects of sleep that your mind goes through, from processing to conflict resolution to venting out, on those type of psychological aspects. But if you're not having that, you're never doing that. You're never having new information outweigh old information, so you're never allowing yourself to be at terms with any event in your life. And then if you're not sleepy, then everything's overwhelming. And then you're probably not eating right, because you're grabbing things that are just going to be fast energy consumption. And so now you're further creating this embedded loop that you're just deteriorating yourself more and more.
And the neocortex and all the synapses start going in that direction. So you can consciously understand the right thing to do, like trying to get the Greek guy here to get off coffee, but the
Me too. I need it too. I've been trying.
But your physiology almost becomes dependent and addicted to those hormonal releases that you get from, let's say, caffeine.
Yeah.
And that's going to affect the way the brain creates synapses and your identity, and it's all here. And people understand consciously what they need to do, but physiologically they can't. Yeah. It's like their hormones are addicted. Like, hormonal releases are fascinating. Women are more oxytocin driven, men are more vasopressin. And this is very primal. We're bonding, they're hunters, right? Aggressive, testosterone, hunt, fight, protect. And we're not using any of these beautiful hormones that we have been so blessed with for anything except being freaking gluttonous, consuming sloths.
Yeah.
We eat, we purge, we don't connect to anything that's real. The phone in the bed, the lights, the way people breathe, the way they sit, all this comes down to maybe what you guys are doing here at Liberate, which is to connect to the inner you, to make a real deep connection. And there are so many different moving parts with just how you live your daily life, with just how you sit. We sit like this, right? A C shape. There's no upper trunk circulation in that.
Yeah.
How is that going to help your mental cognition, your sense of self and wellness, if you're not being able to circulate anything? Women who are estrogen dominant, that's a huge problem, because that's going to affect your sense of reality. If you have too much estradiol running through the blood, you are PMSing. You're subjective. How are you going to balance your hormones and then break old synapses, which is like a key into a lock? It's a habit.
Yeah.
And to create new habits, you have to break old habits. Well, how do you break old habits? Well, you have to deconstruct, go down that rabbit's hole, find out who you were as a kid. When did this start? Because that grew up off to this branch and created this habit that you can't break. Yeah. So McAllis will say, oh, well, I love the coffee and I'm Greek and I love the taste, but this goes far down that rabbit's hole.
Yeah, this is even generational. This is something that he observed probably with parents or different things, and it becomes this, and then all of the links that are from it, like how many good times are sitting there, or the comfort or the relaxation or whatever it may be, right?
Yes. And how does the conscious mind, people are conscious and know that they should be making wiser choices if it's a relationship or jobs or their self perception or their body. How are you, one side of your understanding is like, I see everything clearly, but the other side won't change.
Yeah.
Right? So you have to deconstruct a lot of different things on the way the neocortex works, the synapses, how we create habits, how the food's affecting us, how the sleep is affecting us. All of these things are very, very relevant. Now, people who are addicted or have poor impulse control, that's your physiology at that juncture. At that point, your hormones are running on autopilot.
Yeah.
So how do you, pull out those connections and create new ones and go against what your impulses are? You're doing wrong, but you do it anyway. And it takes a really strong minded person who puts themselves in alignment with all of the right things to be able to then go, I have just this much energy to make the first step, and now I've made the second step, and now I've made the third step. But in this society that we live in, it's very difficult.
Well, especially since a lot of the things are almost like praised, like all the bad behaviors are praised or looked at, you know, like, I mean, if you look at coffee, it's like there's a coffee shop on every corner. It's like, it's the, you know, trendy, cool thing to do. It's like, oh, let's meet out for a coffee, or let's do this, or, you know, all of that stuff. And, you know, and so that's almost pushed on people, right? You know, and then whether it's like the fast convenience of the fast foods or the different things, you know, and so more and more, not only is it just about you, you're fighting a societal push as well, where it's almost like the double willpower needing to happen.
Yes, which kind of goes back to where, because my mom, this started, you said, with the cancer in China study. My mom had a thing called a glioblastoma. It's the most aggressive brain cancer that exists. Pretty much less than 1% of all people survive this. That's just the end of it. It doesn't metastasize, it just grows in the brain and just kills you.
Wow.
And she's still alive today. So I found the ketogenic diet because I found something that was an anti-cancer strategy.
Gotcha.
She's still alive. It's 12 years later. And people are like, the doctors are like, I don't know how she's still alive, but she is. So for me, my brother and I went in there and we just changed her whole life, everything from like sleep to exercise to her diet. Now, back then, I didn't really know what I was doing. But that's when I started going on the internet and started talking about my experience with my mom who survived. Yeah. And for me to do this diet, I was like, I'm gonna do this diet. It's cray.
But it makes sense knowing and looking at cancer and what I've studied from it, because, you know, for the keto diet, you're taking away a lot of the fruits, which are carbohydrates. You're taking a lot of the other carbohydrates away, and so, you know, there's a theory out there that that cancer is a fungus overgrowth, okay, and that and so again, that's a theory that cancer can be a cause of fungus, and that it's this fungus growth, and that's why the tumors are white, and that's why they can grow really big, and then they can also shrink within.
I think it has an effect on cancers, because we have oncogenes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And so, but it's interesting that a lot of times when people put these cancer into remission, it is, you know, cutting a lot of the sugar down and different things, but you also took away all the processed foods, all of those, you know, in the way that you go about it with it is making sure that the meats and the everything is clean
as possible.
You know, and I think that that's like the biggest thing. If people are eating what they're eating, make sure it's the cleanest, that it's the cleanest possible, that it's not these processed or filled with these chemicals or filled with these hormones. And in it, now you're getting natural. And I think anytime somebody's back to nature, that's the healthiest anybody can be, right?
As healthy as anyone can be. That's where we kind of started this whole conversation about following things that is like, what would it be if you lived outside? That's my whole ideology. And the thing about the whole like plants versus meat, which there's benefits to both, but we have to look at the health of the animal, or if you're eating a plant that's been genetically selectively bred, modified, it has pesticides on it. The thing is that...
And then how you're cooking the plants and everything too. Yeah.
And how you're cooking it. My big thing right now is eating organ meats. That's my huge push right now. Because there's more vitamins and minerals coming from the organ meats than fruits and vegetables combined 100 times. And I'm saying this on purpose because you're plant-based, and I want to see what your reaction is. She looked at me like this. You ready for this, honey? Okay. So plants make K1, not K2. It's hard to get K1 now. You can convert a little bit of K1 into K2, but you need fat transport, so it's very not good to eat plants with high in K1 without like eating an avocado with it, because you need a these are fat soluble vitamins, vitamin D, E, A, and K, fat soluble. Things like keratin, which is retinol in carrots, is super toxic. So when they take a plant source vitamin A and they put it into a capsule and they give it to you, that's where liver damage comes into play.
Yeah.
But if you have like liver and it's got retinol in it, you're good. There's no liver damage. And you can get out the zinc, copper, selenium, the iodine, the vitamin D, E, A, K, and the iron, which is amazing.
Well, what about some of the toxins that are in the liver that you're
Liver
eating?
does not store in the toxins, it's stored in the body fat. It just filters the toxins. That's just a fact.
Well, it filters the toxins, but a lot of times the liver gets toxin filled because it's not it stops filtering it into the process of filtering it becomes hindered with the overindulgence.
This is factory farming, so we're talking nature.
Okay.
There's no toxins. There's no toxins, and toxins aren't stored in the liver. They actually filtrate through. They're not getting stuck unless it's a liver that's damaged through factory farming and hormones and things of this nature. We're trying to put too much IGF-1 factor, make a cow grow too fast. So, so you're good to go. Like, I eat grass-fed liver all day. I remember I started doing like this. I'm like, I'm 52, my 20/20 vision is going away. I've been doing liver for 2 years. It's right back, 20/20 again. Just like this, boom.
Interesting.
Yeah, because of the retinol. So if we take away the whole it's
so
an
where,
animal,
where
it's
do you
sentient,
go?
and just go to what's the nutrition inside of it.
So where do you go to get your clean meat sources?
Oh, there's a ranch up 2 hours from here. Yeah.
So okay.
Spring Valley, yeah.
So you actually go to the ranch,
Yeah.
get your products from the ranch.
Yeah.
So
Or-
if people were listening though and they wanted to, where would they go?
Or there's places online. There's uswellnessmeats.com. There are certain ranches that will now freeze dry and they'll send it.
Okay.
Or they'll wrap it in ice and they'll send it. Or you can go to your local farmer and support your local farmer and don't support factory farming and get your grass-fed meats. But I got sponsored by a company that I just love to death, because what happens is a lot of people are missing an enzyme called diamine oxidase. This is when people have allergies, food, seasonal, they're swollen all the time, they get sick, and we are missing certain types of enzymes, unfortunately, coming from things like wheat products, which poke holes in the gut wall, and there's a thing called cross-reactivity where things like cheese can do the same and certain dairy can do the same to people. But this diamine oxidase enzyme sits in the small intestine, and when you release histamine, it takes it down. So why are people running to antihistamines? Because that diamine oxidase is too low because of the diets that we eat.
Gotcha.
So eating things like kidney and thymus from a goat will help the production of diamine oxidase. So how I found this out was I went online. There was a cockroach infestation in my building. The city cited them, so they finally had to go or else they were gonna the city was gonna fine them a lot. So they had to go and seal off all of it. Everybody was getting cockroaches. Well, I was getting cockroaches so much they started biting me, and I started having a histamine response because they bite.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't know that they bite. They can be really, really tiny. You can't see them. They come up and get on you, and they'll bite. So that little bite turned into big welt. You saw them. I started getting these big welts, and I was like, okay, I'm having a histamine response. This is swelling. So I knew that. And I was like, what takes down swelling? Well, I heard that kidney does it. So I was like, okay, let's start with kidney. And then I was like, oh, thymus. Well, I can't get thymus. That's really hard to get because it sits behind the trachea. And this company, all their stuff is from New Zealand, which is they're super hardcore regulated with her grazing ruminants. Am I saying the word right? With their grazing animals. Mm-hmm. And I started taking thymus, and you could just see the swelling go to nothing.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, this is crazy. This is insane, right? I was like, this is ridiculous. So then for the liver with the vitamin C, and then the iron, and then I had fibroids, and I was bleeding too much, and then I was taking, when I started taking liver, and my iron had become too low. No, this is fibroids a while ago. But my iron, I hadn't gotten back my iron because I wasn't eating iron-rich foods with hemoglobin in it. I started eating liver, and then my iron went boop, right back up. So for me, the big push right now is organ meats. Mm-hmm. And I can't.
Interesting. Well, hey, whatever works for people, right? I don't know that I could be eating an organ meat, but but it's fascinating that the science behind it and the different aspects. I'm sure that there's probably some maybe herbs or something that can be brewed that also have somewhat of an effect, but
they're stinging nettle, but it doesn't work like diamine oxidase. Diamine oxidase is the enzyme that breaks down histamine in your body.
Yeah, no, I'm saying, but for those that don't want to eat, the kidney or whatnot, maybe there's something out there. I don't know it. I don't know what that is, but I'm just saying it. But it's beautiful that the planet has cures for everything if we find those cures, right? In whatever form that comes into, right? And I think that that's all across the gamut, you know, from you know, maybe the different animals and plants that are around us, or the different ways that we can process it, to even, you know, like, I'm a firm believer in psychedelics helping out with anxiety, or giving
Absolutely.
people spiritual awakening and healing some traumas in them. So, you know, from consuming a mushroom to taking ayahuasca to eating a kidney to, you know, finding, you know, the right tea that helps remove whatever that is for people. But I think the basis of, I think that correlates and kind of merges both of our belief system is that this planet, and what is on this planet naturally has the ability to heal, correct, and rebalance our system when we allow ourselves to seek those answers, find it, and consume it. We will find that balance back again. And it's a balance not just within our nutrients, it's that balance of, you know, the circadian rhythms, and going and being with a horse, and outside of the distraction of the 4G, 5G networks that are bombarding us, and the lights and the systems. It's like, how do we become more in alignment, because we're so out of it, and it's manifesting in illness, psychosis, depression, you know, withdrawal, like all of these different things, you know, and there is answers, and it doesn't have to come in a capsule or a pill. Right?
No, it doesn't. I think that people should look at things like, can you poop? Because that's a big problem, right? You start with the basics, like we just make it simple. Are you pooping? Are you constipated? Because if you can't poop, then you're not getting out all of the estrogen that's being reabsorbed back into the body and causing damage and cancers and things of this nature. You know, people should just go, can you poop?
Yeah.
You know, can you sleep within 10 minutes of going to bed? I don't mean 2 minutes, because that's adrenal fatigue. Can you just relax and just slightly slide into sleep?
Yeah.
Do you wake up with energy? Are you tired? Does it take you more than 5 minutes to get out of bed? These are small things that people can look at in their everyday to see if they're functioning, if their stuff is functioning.
Yeah.
Because food and even and herbs aren't going to work unless you go and do the groundwork on the existing health issues that you have. Because you could take all the right food and all the right herbs, and then you're going to bed at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. Or you have these holes that need to be healed, and so your nutrients aren't even being absorbed, right? You know, so like it's looking at yourself as the whole system, right? You know, and seeing, you know, what's working in my life, what isn't working. And even I love the fact of asking those simple questions, because people don't even take the time to examine their life to say, do I have a hard time falling asleep? Do I fall asleep within 10 minutes? Do I poop normal? Do I not? Do
my skin? Do I have like eczema, psoriasis? Am I bloated? You know, do I fart? Is my poop floating?
Yeah.
Like if I'm storing fat in weird parts of my body, if my hair falling out, you had a hypothyroidism. So like, you know, my hair's falling out. So many people ask me that, my hair's falling out. What's going on? I was like, well, there's a couple things, right? It's either like low iron, or it's you're low T3, or you're having plaque psoriasis that's like, you know, completely obliterating your scalp, or you're having an autoimmunity like alopecia, and you have to look at what you're eating for that.
Yeah.
So things like hair thinning, these are the things I get from women. My menstrual cycle is wonky, I've got this, that, or third, I'm PMSing, I'm depressed, or somebody's skin, I can look at people's skin and I can see what's going on. Bags under the eyes, right? What's bags under the eyes? What causes that?
Yeah.
Dark circles under the eyes, crepey skin, you know, men who are like, oh, I just don't build any muscles on my legs. Everybody should stop and take a look, because if something doesn't feel right, it probably isn't.
Yeah.
And we just normify everything and go, oh, like this isn't that bad. And you keep rolling, doing the same bad action and getting the same bad result, and then turning towards plastic surgery, because as you know, we live in the city where people are just, like, I'll be like, it's a young girl, I'm like, you got a fake butt. I'm like, that looks fake.
Yeah. I might not feel good, and I might be falling apart on the inside, but I look good.
Right? I think I look good. I look like a mutant monster. I don't look human anymore, but hey, I think I look good. Yeah. There's so many things to consider, and I think...
I look like a mutant monster.
No, sorry.
It's not true.
They do. Like I see so many girls at the gym.
I can't kiss you if I wanted to, because I can't know how to move them. No, I'm sorry. Sorry, people.
No, I mean, it's really... Like, I'm pretty blunt, and one thing I try to get people to understand is that I'm 52 going on 53. My butt has been served on this planet.
Yeah.
And you get to a point in your life where you don't want to filter what you think anymore, but you also want to be respectful to the person with whom you're speaking to,
Yeah.
but still be true to who you are. And I think a lot of people lose that in trying to get acceptance, or they become easily triggered because no one's honest anymore. Everybody's like kind of hiding behind this weird thing. So when trends come, people jump on a trend, keto or whatever trend it is, but they don't actually look into why they do what they do. People are like, so you're saying the keto diet's the best diet? I'm like, nope, not at all.
Yeah.
It can actually hurt you. You know, don't do things that are trendy. Go and try to figure out, because I feel like people need to get to know who they are from the eyes of another, not from the internal self.
Yeah.
Right? Because the internal self is always going to protect themselves. So you can give people all the tools. Here, all the tools will fix the car. They'd only use 2. I'm like, you can't use 2, you got to use all 10. The thing won't work.
Yeah.
That's the problem with our society today. People don't take a step back, take a look at who they actually are. Sometimes I say to people, don't react, right? Talk to a person in the way that you think, that the way their brain works. Like sometimes when I talk to the Greek guy here, I have to find a language that he understands.
Yeah.
Right? Because he doesn't like confrontation. I don't like it either, but I have no problem with it.
Yeah.
Right? I have no problem at all. I've like conditioned myself to, instead of being quiet like I used to be, I started speaking up. And as you get older, you're like, I've been on this planet a long time. I'm just going to say what I think. I don't care back. So, he calls me the blunt instrument of death.
Hey, at a certain point, yeah. And when you're coming from a space of like, and I think people need to do that for their self too, and hearing what other people, but also being blunt to their self on what is working, what isn't working, right? It's like you can hide it. Yeah, your inner self is going to tell you and support you and validate you, but there's also going to be some things when you know, and you have to be clear on that. Like when shit ain't working and things don't, But
they will people will still come up with an excuse. I'll be like,
But that's when they're not honest with themselves. But if they really know that they know, like they know that their sleep cycle's screwed up, or they know that they've been struggling with the adrenal, or they know that they have constant depression, or they know that their system isn't working right. They know. They get in denial of sometimes their actions around it because they want to project the reasons why they're like that to not be their responsibility or their fault. But that's doing you a disservice for those that are listening, because everything in your life is your fault. And when you get there and you take responsibility, it doesn't mean that you mean to be like, oh, I was so horrible before I did all this stuff. It just meaning like, hey, no, I can take responsibility. I got myself here. And that means that if you can take responsibility, that means that you can get yourself out of here, right? Wherever here may be for you, but it's not your mother's fault, your brother's fault, your sister's fault, your girlfriend, your boyfriend, your husband, your wife, your this,
boss,
your
neighbor,
co-worker, the person that brought donuts into work. It's not anybody's fault but yours. And when you get that, you own your own life, and then you can start to go down rabbit holes. You can dive in deeper to a lot of Stephanie's work. She does all these beautiful videos, and I think you do live once a week.
live once a week.
So live once a week with all of these amazing facts, genius in there as far as like all the things I'm sure that you're hearing it here. And then, do rabbit holes on other things too, and find out all the different things and try stuff and try to fix your life if it's broken. I think that's the biggest thing. Take responsibility. I made it broken. I'm the one who made the choices that got me here. And then see if you can make some choices to get you out of here.
I know. I really wish people would do this. Would make the planet a lot more easy. But I think that because so many other people are the exact same way, they can't see the trees through the forest. Like they can't see it. They can't see that there's problems that are around them. They might feel crappy one day, but when I say, if I'm bluntly honest with people, right, it's the most like, it's really shocking because no one else is. Yeah. So you might feel like, oh, I don't feel like this girl that rides horses. She's like, I hate pictures of me. I look ugly. And I'm like, what are you talking about? You're beautiful. She's like, I don't like the bags under my eyes. And I'm like, okay. And I was like, she's like, it's genetic. I'm like, no, it's not. It's your kidneys. And she's like, I was like, what do you eat? She's like, garbage.
Yeah.
Is she going to stop eating garbage? No.
Yeah. But if she takes responsibility that says, hey, I caused these bags under my eyes by the choices that I've made, then she's actually in the first step of making change, right? You know, taking responsibility. If she does. But she has to want it big enough. Otherwise, if the pain's not big enough, she ain't going to make the change.
But you can do a blepharoplasty. Just have a surgery and take those fat pads away.
You know, but then they're going to come back, right? And so then it's not really solving the issue.
You look like a mutant when you do that too, because things go inward and they have to start filling things and...
You know, so, you know, I just think that, you know, if you're hearing this and you're starting to say, hey, there's this going on with me, or there's this, or there's that, you know, say, okay, if I can correct it, and you start to hold the possibility, just be curious and hold the possibility that there could be a solution, right? If you have,
there definitely is.
You know, if you have somebody's mom that, you know, Stephanie's mom that, you know, nobody survives brain cancer. I mean, look up the research for it. Nobody survives brain cancer. You know, like 5 years, almost every single person that has brain cancer within 5 years dies. Okay? That is the research, it's the truth, it's out there, okay? It's one of the hardest cancers to ever actually have any recovery, and it doesn't exist. So how many years has your mom been since she was diagnosed?
It's just 12 now.
12? Just 12? That's amazing.
She has a glioblastoma. This is the worst form of brain cancer.
Okay, so literally, don't take it from me, Google it. That 5 years, almost every single person that has been diagnosed with brain cancer is dead within 5 years. Okay, so 12 years, just 12 years? 12 years is a huge. That's more than double what the average life expectancy is, okay?
Yes.
So with saying that, you know, like, it doesn't matter what you're given or the conditions that you have. And, like, if her mom took the responsibility, and which I'm sure that she did, is that my diet and my thing.
Oh, no. My brother and I had to,
well, you forced her. But then at some point through it, there had to been some understanding that, okay, maybe some of what I was doing before was some of the causality to create the circumstances. Okay. So it'll work blindly, too.
You know how it is with your parents? When they get a certain age, I'm like, Mom, it's not 1975 anymore. Like, yeah, sorry. I mean, most people, but I think those older generations, like her.
But as long as, there's some belief that it's working for her to be able to continue to be doing it.
At this juncture, she's literally like, she doesn't appreciate that she's lived this long, and I catch her eating junk. And she's like, it's okay to eat junk every once in a while. So no, there are people that don't actually realize that they have come to a better place in their life.
Okay.
They're still looking at the cup half empty.
So good thing she has you as a daughter and your brother pushing her along. But for most people, if they get
blunt instrument.
Blunt instrument that's there pushing. But some people don't have that. But what I'm getting at is, like, even in that case, from the outside perspective, we can see that clearly there was some things within her lifestyle that needed to be changed, and as a result of changing her lifestyle, she was able to continue to live 12 years and strong now. Okay, so the control mechanism, meaning card full.
Okay. Yep.
Oh, at least we're not live. I do so many lives with him. I'm just like, every time something goes wrong, you're like, face palm. Oh no, what are we gonna do?
Yeah, right.
Okay.
So I know you weren't expecting this type of conversation.
Oh, no, it's okay. It's good. It's a great conversation.
Yeah, you know a lot of stuff.
Yeah, we have to be ending because I do have a client coming in, too.
I'm recording over here.
Okay.
So
Okay. So, you know, at a certain point, you have to take that responsibility, or you can understand from this perspective that, you know, you making different changes in your lifestyle, right? From diet to exercise to sleep to stress to all of it shifts you, you know? And you can change who you are and how you live and your health, all of it.
You can. Everybody can. And I hope that they come and watch.
I'm confident.
It's okay. We'll just cut that out.
I'm dying. Oh.
That happens to me sometimes.
Ooh, do. Energetically clearing, product healing. Here we go.
Yes, seriously. This has happened to me too, live, and I literally just end the stream because I'm just like,
Okay, so with that being said, Stephanie, let's hear some closing, and I would love for people to know where they can find you.
Okay. My closing is, pretty much everything that Christine just said. Is it Christine or Christina?
Cristina.
He calls you Christine. Okay. Everything that Christina just said, he just looked at me like, you called me out, you blunt instrument of death. I think that everything that you just said, pretty much I resonate with. You can, by using my mother as the example, I'm sorry to be antagonistic about it, but you're right. If you have one moment where you realize that, hey, this is working for me, it's like one step in front of the other, just, try something for a week, cut out all the toxins for 2 days, don't go to your Starbucks or don't go to this fast food place this weekend where you normally go on the weekends, and it takes baby steps, and if you survive that weekend, maybe you can survive another weekend, and then you start creating a new neurological pathway, and then you start creating a new habit, and then you start creating a new self. So yes, I don't want to sound so dogmatic and it's just, I think that I personally am just so overwhelmed with everyone that I talk to, and I'm trying to inspire them to do better, and they're getting caught up in distractions. But
And their story.
what they've cemented and believed to be their truth. So I feel like if you could just go one day and then go another day and then another day and just be open-minded to hear something, even if it is eating meat, but just hear something that's contrary to what you typically understand and come to know in yourself, and not rule it out, but just go, okay, that's an interesting thing, I'll just put in a file over there. Not that I'm going to adopt that file, but if people can, it doesn't matter if it's skin color or economical differences or backgrounds or different countries, that if you could just open your mind to somebody else's reality and be more understanding of what they're going through, even though it's different from yours, then just to try to understand what their position is. And I think that people will feel better doing that. The fact that you're plant-based, I think, is amazing. I understand the reasoning behind it. That's why I'm not critical of it whatsoever. I understand why a lot of people decide to go that direction. And it doesn't matter what the subject is in life, is that to hear each other out and just be open-minded. And then when it comes to your own self preservation, is to just keep your mind open and try one step at a time.
Yeah, and what works for you now might, be different what works for people, because at different times they might need different things, because their bodies are always changing.
Always.
The environment's always changing, the different things, what we're deficient in, what versus what we have a surplus in, what issues or what organs are functioning better or functioning worse, and the different things that you have to change over time, right? And so we're constantly needing to alter because we're never the same. Right?
We're never the same. And plants have their purpose. There's a lot of plants are very, very healing, done in the right, to not take your food for granted.
Yeah, I think anything done in the right way. I'm not opposed to meat eaters, or anything like that. I'm just more along the lines of the way that we make and we create and we have the mass availability of meats and things are largely very toxic for people. And so, I like hearing that you go to a farm, you get things that are natural, you have an animal that's lived a beautiful open range lifestyle, those types of things, things that are natural. I just think that, again, and I'll be the first to say it, I think that a lot of times the plants that we eat are completely not natural too, so it's all of it. I'm gonna sit here saying, we just need to do something different, and whatever those answers are, and it might be different for different people. And I like your theory of where did you originate and what we're given to there, because maybe somebody that is coming from a more tropical area, they would resonate more with fruits, or more people that are coming from there. But I like that kind of a viewpoint and kind of narrative of dropping yourself into the scenario or the different age or different period and look around what is around, right?
Look around what's around, and also go down the rabbit's hole and try to understand your existing health, because beyond food, if you're having a thyroid problem and you're having stress and you're not sleeping, this will downregulate your hormones in 2 seconds. And so putting a lot of emphasis on giving yourself more time, because people don't give themselves enough time for themselves to take down all of the distractions and the stress, those things are also so very important. I don't have time for a horse, but I just knew that it was so important for me to get outside. I was like, I ride my bike, that's great, okay, fabulous, but I don't always want to look at like homeless encampments. I want to see something natural, okay?
Yeah, and especially in LA, growing 19% a year. Can you believe that? Yeah.
I'm like,
19% a year. Like,
it's like astronomical numbers. And this is not just numbers, yo. You can walk down on La Brea, like
Yeah,
just
you
south
go,
of
like,
Sunset,
yeah, in the last
next to
3
the Ross.
years.
Have you seen that Ross?
no, but I've
Yo,
in the last 3 years, the homeless
Crazy.
has gotten crazy. I mean, homeless in Los Angeles and being on a West Coast area and stuff like that. And we're a bigger city. We've always had homeless, and we always had Skid Row and the different problems that we had, but it is like every park, every place, every spare sidewalk in all neighborhoods. You know, I mean, 19% year over year. I think like 2 years ago it grew by 17%, and last year it grew by 19%. So, I mean, like, that is a huge number, almost 20% more homeless than the year before. And this is what they are, you know, taking as far as what they're pooling. So, you know, there could be a way more number than that. But I mean, we definitely have a crisis here that we need to figure out a way to solve, which that's another podcast.
No, that's another podcast. But just to say, there's 30 million people in all the counties combined. 19% of 30 million people. That's a lot of homeless people. So, yeah. So at the end of the day, just getting back to, you know, just stop being distracted and take one day at a time, and stop being so friggin' insecure and look at the things that scare you the most, because they're not that scary.
Yeah. And where can people find you?
Yes, you can find me on my website, which is stephanieperson.com. You can find me here at Liberate when I do live streams every Wednesday now. And you can find me on Instagram, which is Stephanie Ketogenic, my Facebook, which is Stephanie the Business Person. And I know I'm not a millennial, so I didn't say the same name in every social media platform, but there you go.
Thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everybody for listening, and till next time.
We're out.
If you enjoyed this conversation, like it, subscribe, and share it with your friends. If you want some more amazing resources on your path of liberation, head over to liberateyourself.com and sign up for our mailing list. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram at Liberate Hollywood, all one word, or Liberate Emporium, all one word. Until next time, liberate yourself. Thinking that you want to take that action step, why wait? Book your session right now. Go to liberateyourself.com, click on either Liberate Hollywood or Liberate Emporium, see our amazing practitioners and who resonates most with you. And then book a session via Skype, phone, or in person. We're here for you, and it's your time to start creating your life.